Other ideas? Yes, Laura.
Mr. Chairman, I think one of the ideas that Tracy came up with, and I'll help her with that, we actually know people that work for the Wellstone Foundation who do political trainings. They have specific Native American political organizing training. Peggy Flanagan. I'll work with you to raise the money to get them to come. We'll find out how much it's going to
Write
cost.
that down, please.
But I think that you and I have talked about this before, that if we could work with tribal leadership, that maybe perhaps people like the intergovernmental affairs person like Mr. Baca, every tribal leader could maybe appoint somebody or send somebody to this training. So we had good representation, and we could send them back during the election. And we that each tribe had at least one organizer, trained organizer.
Well,
Yes,
and also to be sure to give attention to the off-reservation communities in this whole deal, and also to include young people in this.
Just quickly to tie onto your thought, so you were saying that you actually have some
Numbers.
demographic, can you
Yes.
talk about that a little bit?
You want to do it, Sterling?
Sure, I can say a few things. So over spring break, the 2010 census results first became available in terms of the redistricting file. So that offered, among other things, race and ethnicity, and it can be broken out for the entire population or for the adult population, that is 18 and over, which are of voting age. And so you heard some of these statistics mentioned earlier. It's 51.7% of New Mexico's Indian population that now lives off reservation. They've crossed that threshold. The same thing is true for Navajo Nation, I estimate. It was about 2007 that they now have the majority of their population living off reservation. And in fact, Navajo is an increasing presence in the state. But there's going to be important work to do finding these particular voters or potential voters, getting them registered in off-reservation areas. Census data is one thing that can help, and there are other strategies too. Just to give you a sense about the county we're in right now, Bernalillo County, there are, according to the census, 24,000 Native Americans of voting age in this county. I would estimate only half of those are registered right now. So there's a tremendous work ahead of you to find that other 10, 12, 15,000, get them registered, get them mobilized.
I have a quick question before you go on. How many of the general population are registered? Take out the NAs that you just said in Bernalillo County. How many of the general population, what's the percentage of them that are registered to vote? We're not that far behind is my guess, but you tell me.
Oh, in Bernalillo County you mean, or statewide?
Whatever.
Well, statewide, according to the census after the 2008 election, showed that about 2/3 of the voting age population in New Mexico was registered. So, and I would say that it was about 54% for Hispanics, probably 75% for Anglos, and so Native Americans were a few percentage points, in my estimation, behind Hispanics. I think, as I've studied those voter turnout rates, I would say voter turnout for Native voters is higher on reservation, where they have strengthened numbers and can elect their own candidates to office, than it is in the cities. So there's a tremendous challenge there in the urban areas.
And a tremendous opportunity, right?
Yes.
He actually has a map, I don't know if you can pull it up, but he has a map showing where the biggest concentration of Native Americans are in Bernalillo County. I don't know if you have it statewide.
It's true, and I'll just say briefly that the census made that available at the precinct level, so we can say here is the percentage of Native Americans by precinct in a county or in the state, but it's also all the way down to the block level. This is the benefit of those census workers mailing out those forms and knocking on doors. There are 9,000 blocks according to the Census Bureau in Bernalillo County. We can pinpoint by those blocks where those Native Americans live.
So if I can make just one quick comment tied onto that, that's where we are. Did everybody get the same feeling when you heard that? And we're ready, we're ready to start working at that level, at the precinct level, at the block level if need be, precinct level, ward level, all the way up to the state level. And I think, to me, that's what I hope grows out of our effort in the next, not just the next couple of years, but I hope that's where we focus because we're there. we have so many things, good people working very hard at each of these levels who are not yet all interconnected. And where there are gaps, where they don't quite know how to get started, we have the resources among us to help them get started. So with that kind of data, I think we can really begin to organize at the level we need to organize. So, two hands.
A couple of things. What were the numbers in the city's mayoral election? How many people voted?
In
What was the
the
winners?
election for mayor, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't happen to have those figures available, but I would estimate that the turnout was maybe 40%, between 40 and 50 is typical for municipal election. The point probably to be made though is that in a place like Bernalillo County, if you have 24,000 potential native voters, they can swing a municipal election,
Well,
a
we
school
can
board
vote,
election.
man. We can put it in,
Yeah.
man, that's my point. The other thing is, I would suggest, for this group, if you get some mapping together with all the districts, because I think what the point I'm alluding to is identifying where the majority of the off-reservation candidate, or the population is, and then look within those precincts and districts, what candidates are being touted, and start looking at them. Because for most of it, I know I was part of all the Pueblo councils, was the Pathways to Tribal Harmony some years ago, 25 years ago. Lisa was a part of that. We all had the young,
3 years ago.
the young strength. But it's good to see that there's a lot of people in this room which we didn't really have at that time. And I think it was troublesome with getting the 19 pueblos, to be a part of that. It really was. And the following year we split from them, actually. And because we were running things better without government interference. But the point being again though, is to look at, and I know up north, you guys have a lot of people up there in those districts up there. And there's no reason why we can have schools commissioners, superintendents, and all those kind of things that are part of that. And I think that needs to be part of if you have a newsletter or something, that really needs to be hit hard, and especially to the youngsters as well. And also, one of the things I think of this group at times happens, sometimes the tribal leadership doesn't speak well at times. And I think you can see the condition in this country, within the whole thing, so that obviously the point's not being made across. And I'm a little bit more cynical now about things. So voting for anything for me is a real problem at times, but because I consider myself an anarchist. So.
We could form a committee for that.
And a big budget.
And then do away with it.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Lots of heads, and I realize, I'm sorry I'm being so informal. Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, please.
In 10 days, we have a wonderful opportunity at Gathering of Nations to register a lot of people. We need to get Native American voter registrars. Any county clerk can train you in 2 hours, and you become a state voter registrar. We should have every shift covered at Gathering of Nations to register anybody showing up there who lives in New Mexico who isn't registered to vote.
Before we jump over to Tracy's comment, does everybody think it's a good idea?
Is there,
Who? Yes, Steph,
Mr. Chair,
just on that point.
yeah, is there a rule about that? Like at Gathering, there's gonna be people from throughout the country, and that if we are trained here, we can only register people here?
In New Mexico.
I think that's probably
Yeah.
what we would,
Well,
it'd be
only
nice if there were
documented
people registering
conform,
elsewhere. Does somebody in this room must have a direct connection to the folks at Gathering? That
Right here.
could, yeah, you could.
Melanie?
Do you wanna talk to Mel, I guess, for Santa Clara too, so, do you wanna talk to Mel? See if they'd be willing to host or allow some space for that? Right on. Tracy?
Well, 2 things. First off, I'm a voter registrar, so I commit to that right now. And then I know the training's really, really easy. Any of us could do it. It's kind of fun too. You get to know people and you get to talk to them. And sometimes, they haven't. A lot of people who are just registering for the first time have never voted. And to be able to share your experience, it really helps people make that commitment to want to vote. But what I wanted to say, speaking of committees, and I don't know why I didn't say this earlier when I was giving my speech, I was really nervous, but Keegan over here, Keegan King and I, he's like, what? She's gonna say. Back in 2007 and 2008, we were appointed by then party chair Brian Colon to sit on the Affirmative Action Committee. they're going to be electing new members to the Affirmative Action Committee. It's a state committee. You serve for a couple-year term, and at the state meeting on the 30th, they're gonna be electing new people. They need Native American representation. I think they put on two, a female and a male, that are on the elected, that are voting members, but we can also petition whoever gets the chairmanship of the party to put more of us on there. They might be non-voting members, but our voice will be heard. Some of the issues we worked on when I sat on the Affirmative Action Committee was making sure we had equitable polling places out at Tohajale for the 2008 election. I guarantee part of why there wasn't as big of a turnout on a non-major election year for the governor election last year was because they condensed polling locations, and there wasn't access for our elderly tribal members to make it to the polling locations, and that's an absolute travesty. We cannot let that happen again. So I would encourage any of you that are interested in sitting on a state committee to come to the convention center on the 30th and put your name in and talk to people and get votes and get on that committee.
Okay, so